There is something happening inside your mind that you are completely unaware of. While you are focused on these words, an invisible force older than civilization itself is quietly shaping every decision you make, every relationship you form, and every path you choose in life. Most people live their entire existence without ever discovering this hidden architect of their reality. Here is the devastating truth that will shatter everything you think you know about yourself. The person you believe you are is nothing more than a carefully constructed mask, and the real you, the one with actual power, has been buried so deep that you've forgotten it exists. What if I told you that every moment of confusion, every bout of depression, every inexplicable urge or terrifying dream isn't random chaos, but actually your soul trying desperately to communicate with you? What if the very experiences you've been running from your entire life are actually the doorway to becoming who you were truly meant to be? Let me tell you about a man who discovered something so profound about human nature that it changed psychology forever. But this isn't just another success story. This is about a journey into the darkest corners of the human psyche that nearly destroyed him, and why that destruction was exactly what he needed. Picture this. You are 3 years old, innocent and trusting, when suddenly you have a dream so terrifying that it haunts you for decades. You find yourself descending stone steps into an underground chamber, where you encounter something so primal and terrifying that your entire worldview shatters in that single moment. Most people would dismiss this as a childhood nightmare. But what if that nightmare was actually your first glimpse into the hidden architecture of reality itself? This is exactly what happened to Carl Jung, and what he discovered in that underground chamber would eventually revolutionize our understanding of the human mind. But here is what is truly remarkable. The same hidden world that spoke to him in that dream is speaking to you right now, through every unexplained emotion, every recurring pattern, and every moment when you feel like you are living someone else's life. The terrifying truth is this: you are not one person. You are many. And the person you think you are is probably the least authentic version of yourself. Think about the last time you acted in a way that surprised you. Maybe you exploded in anger over something trivial, or found yourself attracted to someone completely wrong for you, or made a decision that seemed to come from nowhere. In those moments you probably thought, "That is not like me." But here is what Jung discovered. That is you just not the version you've been trained to acknowledge. There is a part of your psyche that psychology calls the shadow, and it contains everything you've rejected about yourself. Every quality you've been taught is bad. Every impulse you've learned to suppress. Every aspect of your personality that doesn't fit the image you want to project it, all gets pushed down into this hidden realm. But here is the kicker. It doesn't disappear. It grows stronger in the darkness, and it begins to run your life from the shadows. Jung spent years studying patients who had completely lost touch with reality, and what he found was shocking. These weren't broken people, they were people whose shadow had finally broken free from its prison. Their madness wasn't random. It was their unconscious mind trying to restore balance to a psyche that had become dangerously one-sided. Here is the hidden pattern that governs every life. The more you try to be perfect, the more powerfully your imperfections will eventually surface. The more you try to control your image, the more uncontrollably your authentic self will break through. Let me ask you something. How many of your dreams do you remember? How many of them make any sense to you? Most people dismiss their dreams as meaningless noise from a resting brain. But Jung discovered that dreams are actually your unconscious mind's way of balancing out the lies you tell yourself during the day. Here is how it works. During your waking hours, you present a carefully curated version of yourself to the world. You emphasize certain traits, hide others, and generally try to fit into whatever role society has assigned you. But your unconscious mind sees through all of this performance, and at night, it shows you everything you've been ignoring. Jung called this process compensation, and once you understand it, you'll never look at your dreams the same way again. That recurring nightmare where you are being chased. That is probably your shadow self trying to catch up with you. That dream where you are flying. That is your psyche showing you the freedom you've sacrificed for security. That dream where you are back in school, unprepared for a test. That is your unconscious mind pointing out an area of your life where you feel inadequate but haven't admitted it to yourself. The profound truth that changes everything. Your dreams aren't random, they're the most honest conversations you'll ever have with yourself. But dreams are just the beginning. Jung discovered that the unconscious mind communicates through symbols, synchronicities, and what he called meaningful coincidences. Have you ever noticed how certain themes keep appearing in your life? How you keep meeting the same type of person, or finding yourself in similar situations, or being drawn to particular symbols or ideas? This isn't coincidence, it is your unconscious mind trying to teach you something crucial about yourself. Now here is where Jung's story takes a terrifying turn, and why most people will never undertake the journey he discovered. In his 40s, Jung had achieved everything our society tells us we should want: professional success, family, reputation, financial security. But something was wrong. He felt empty, disconnected, like he was living someone else's life. Sound familiar? What Jung did next was either the bravest or the most foolish thing imaginable. He deliberately opened himself up to his unconscious mind. He began having conversations with the parts of himself he had never acknowledged. He started paying attention to his fantasies, his dreams, his spontaneous thoughts, and what emerged nearly drove him insane. He began experiencing visions so vivid, they seemed more real than reality. He had conversations with figures from his imagination, who seemed to know things he didn't know. He felt like he was losing his grip on sanity, and the terrifying part was that he chose to keep going deeper. Here is the truth that will terrify and liberate you in equal measure. The journey to becoming your authentic self requires you to lose your mind not literally, but to release your grip on the carefully constructed identity you've built to protect yourself from the world. Jung called this process individuation, and it is the most dangerous and rewarding journey a human being can undertake. It requires you to face everything you've been running from, to acknowledge every part of yourself you've rejected, and to integrate all of these fragments into a coherent whole. But here is what happens if you don't undertake this journey. Your unlived life begins to live you. All the potentials you've ignored, all the parts of yourself you've rejected, all the dreams you've abandoned, they don't just disappear. They turn into symptoms: depression, anxiety, addiction, relationship problems, career dissatisfaction, that nagging sense that you are sleepwalking through your own existence. Jung discovered something profound about his patients. The ones who got better weren't the ones who learned to suppress their symptoms more effectively. They were the ones who learned to listen to what their symptoms were trying to tell them. Their depression wasn't just sadness, it was their psyche's way of saying they were living a life that didn't fit who they really were. Their anxiety wasn't just fear, it was their unconscious mind warning them about the consequences of continuing to ignore their authentic nature. The most terrifying realization of all: if you don't live your own life, it will be inherited by your children, who will have to carry the burden of your unlived existence, in addition to their own challenges. This is why you see patterns repeating through generations. This is why children often struggle with the same issues their parents never resolved. This is why family dysfunction seems to pass down like genetic code. It is not just learned behavior, it is the psychological inheritance of unlived lives. So how do you begin this journey without losing yourself completely? Jung discovered that the unconscious mind has its own intelligence, its own wisdom, and its own way of guiding us toward wholeness, but only if we learn to listen. The first step is to stop running from your own complexity. That mood that comes over you for no apparent reason, don't medicate it away, ask it what it is trying to tell you. That person who irritates you beyond all rational explanation, they're probably carrying a projection of some part of yourself you refuse to acknowledge. That recurring dream or fantasy, it is not meaningless, it is your psyche trying to show you a path forward. Jung developed a technique he called active imagination, where he would have conversations with the figures that appeared in his fantasies and dreams. This might sound crazy, but here's what he discovered. These inner figures often knew things his conscious mind didn't know. They could offer perspectives he couldn't access on his own. They could show him blind spots in his thinking, and reveal hidden motivations behind his actions. The revolutionary insight that changes everything? You don't have to figure out your life with your conscious mind alone. You have access to a deeper intelligence that knows exactly what you need for your growth and healing. One of Jung's most profound discoveries was that the very thing that seems to be destroying us is often the thing that can save us. He called this the wounded healer archetype, the idea that our deepest pain contains our greatest power, but only if we're willing to face it directly instead of running away. Think about your own life for a moment. What is the experience you've spent the most energy trying to avoid? What is the quality about yourself that you are most ashamed of? What is the fear that wakes you up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat? Jung would say that buried within that exact experience, quality or fear is the key to your liberation. This is why traditional approaches to personal development often fail. They try to help you become a better version of who you think you should be, rather than helping you discover who you actually are. They focus on adding positive qualities rather than integrating the rejected parts of yourself. They treat symptoms rather than listening to what those symptoms are trying to communicate. The paradox that unlocks everything: you can't become who you are meant to be by rejecting who you are. You can only become whole by embracing your fragmentation. Jung spent his later years living in a tower he built with his own hands, surrounded by nature, tending to simple tasks like chopping wood and lighting fires. After decades of exploring the deepest mysteries of the human psyche, he found profound meaning in the most basic human activities. This wasn't a retreat from complexity, it was the integration of everything he had learned into a simple, authentic way of being. He discovered that the goal of psychological development isn't to become someone different, but to become who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning, expectation, and protective armor you've accumulated over the years. The journey isn't about adding something to yourself, it is about removing everything that isn't truly you. The ultimate truth that sets you free. You are not broken and in need of fixing. You are whole and in need of remembering. Right now, as you reach the end of this exploration, you are standing at the same crossroads. Jung faced all those years ago. You can choose to continue living the life that looks good on paper but feels empty inside, or you can begin the dangerous and magnificent journey of becoming who you truly are. This journey won't be easy. It will require you to question everything you think you know about yourself. It will ask you to have conversations with parts of yourself you've been ignoring. It will demand that you face your fears, embrace your contradictions, and learn to love the parts of yourself you've been taught to hate. But here's what awaits you on the other side. A life that feels genuinely yours. Relationships that are based on authenticity rather than performance. Work that emerges from your deepest nature rather than external expectations. A sense of meaning that comes from within rather than from the approval of others. The question that will determine the rest of your life: are you willing to risk everything you think you are to discover everything you could become? Your unconscious mind has been trying to get your attention your entire life. Through dreams, symptoms, synchronicities, and the mysterious pull toward certain experiences. It has been guiding you toward this moment of choice. You can continue to ignore these messages and wonder why your life feels like you are living someone else's story, or you can begin the sacred work of coming home to yourself. The underground chamber from Jung's childhood dream wasn't a place of terror, it was a place of initiation. It was his psyche's way of preparing him for the journey that would define his life and transform our understanding of what it means to be human. Your initiation is calling to you now. The question is, will you descend those stone steps, or will you spend the rest of your life wondering what you might have discovered in the depths? The choice, as it always has been, is yours. But choose quickly, because the unconscious mind is patient, but it is not infinitely so. The life you are meant to live is waiting for you to claim it, but it won't wait forever. Your authentic self is not a destination to reach, it is a conversation to begin. And that conversation starts now, with the simple acknowledgement that you are far more complex, powerful, and magnificent than you have ever dared to imagine. The tower is calling, the depths are waiting, your true life is ready to begin. Will you answer?